season. They've got a whole mess to deal with at the Big Ben tunnel, as is expected. Chap, Tayson, everybody kind of just trying to find their footing. Skvi overhead. It might only be mere seconds before they clash, and Tayson just trying to keep himself protected, just trying to make sure he's united with Chicho and Atris. Doesn't want any unexpected blows early on.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much of this kind of fight conclude early on. Normally both trios have been making it out. In terms of Vico, Benno, Flixie though, I'm hoping it's not just Vico. Okay, all three of them are good. It looks like they're kind of playing more of the split route, and then from the split, you know, third party, whichever team is fighting it out. But looks like they're back closer to Outlaw once again, but haven't started the third party yet.
Yet being the key word here, because we know that they love to get scrappy. They've already done so in the past two lobbies. They were able to open up with huge three-piece eliminations successfully in each of those lobbies. But you want to keep that ball rolling, and considering that they had an early spill in the last match, Takata, that's the last thing that they want to repeat. And Flixie, if he's not careful, just one receiving end too many of those warning shots. Focus, Yanis, for Strokey, they are closing in.
It's like, what, 4 or 5 trios here, Taco? This is
many trios.
A whole cluster. They talked about clusters, you know, trying to find areas where you have a good opportunity to kind of take shots at each other, but this is like a whole party, and I don't think these players want to take that on so quickly into this match. So although Focus with Strokey and Yanis got some good tags onto Vico, Benno, and Flixie, they're not going to continue pushing through. They saw the danger that entails.
Just would have been a self-sabotage if they actually kept trying to pressure Benno, Vico, Flixie. From the approach that they're making, they could tell way too many teams in the distance, just like we knew. A little bit less flooded, though, at Flooded Frogs. Venya, Marius, Pixie, trying to make quick work of their off-spawn, just building up their loop path, and wanting to see if they can be a reoccurring theme to find those Victor Royales in this Major 2 finals.
Going back into Vico, Benno, Flixie in Crime City. Looks like they're going to be opening up the vault here. I'm trying to see, yeah, it's Chap that doesn't want to let that one slide too easily. They know that they were going up against Tayson at the drop spot. You want to go to areas where there already is a trio fighting to be kind of that third one in there, but Vico's going to get cracked. Just one shot away from getting knocked down. Flixie makes it into the vault, and that was a close one, but Chap still does not want to let that one slide.
Just because you're in the vault, though, doesn't mean that you're actually going to be able to make it out. And Vico, he's relatively hurt. But sure, Benno, Flixie, Vico, they might have the benefit for the time being of controlling the vault, but they might actually just find themselves trapped unless Faded, Moneymaker, and F9 have something to say about it. They could potentially indirectly force Chap, Skvi, and Teeny away from this location inside of Crime City's vault, but Chap does not want to let Benno's team wiggle their way out of this one. Even if there's pressure spilling in from elsewhere, they are determined to stick around and see that they can get some damage done onto Benno's team, if not successfully eliminating them.
I like how it's not even Tayson's trio. That's kind of like around here. It's Moneymaker's trio. Tayson's like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'll let you guys do your thing. I'm going to continue on with my route. And it looks like it's also how they let Vico, Benno, and Flixie make it out of the vault. Decided, you know, you can only wait so long.
No, they're trying to be so careful. They know this is too good to be true, if it usually is. In that scenario, this Vico, couple of shots being fired. F9, Moneymaker, Faded. They want to close in. Issues definitely continuing to build, though. Now checking in with Magic Mosses, Darn, Pix, Demus. They love utilizing the black market at Magic Mosses, but it could potentially come at a price they're not willing to pay just yet. Recognizing that Cringe Volko Kiddo a little bit faster to the punch.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it before. They tend to get like these really big games or kind of mid games, right? Got 27th, game 1, 4th, game 2. So we'll see if Demus, Storm, and Pix can kind of figure out what's going wrong. But the leaders of the pack, Mini Miner with a smile on his face, I drop Sky and Scroll, getting a bit of that fire once again, like Levin was alluding to. But you know, in this part of the game, they're not taking those risks. They're just, you know, taking shots where they see them. And I don't think we'll kind of see them get into an engagement here.
It's not the first time that we've seen this trio leading on the placements for a leaderboard in a major finals, but holding it is a completely separate conversation, and that's something that they're going to have. Ooh, Sky.
Oh,
might want to direct his. Yeah, you might want to sit this one out.
You might have been looking at the Sky too long or something. I don't know what went wrong. Double headshotted.
Probably happy he's not getting turbo keyed for it. That could change though on a moment's notice. All of these teams in their surge bases, it's almost like a facade of a safety net, because you would think that teams wouldn't be willing to get up close and personal, but when you get massive tags like that, it's almost impossible to not want to get more directly involved. As Vico, Veno, Flixie, Crime City.
Ooh.
This is a very familiar background for them, and getting that initial elim onto Faded is definitely going to help out with their current predicament, but they're still having to deal with Chap and Teeny. Svi revisiting Fanai Moneymaker, also trying to make sure that they can play for a little bit of backup. Even if they're a little bit split, it won't necessarily prevent them from completely engaging with this fight.
I mean, the good news is they do have that black market close by. They have the option to kind of get some heals, but in the meantime, you don't want to like fully take these fights. They got the knock, but with a trio and a duo in the surrounding area, you know, not too worth it. But Teeny, Chap, and Skibidi might want to capitalize on that now that they're left alone. Levin was talking about this. Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstash, they have this kind of mountain they like to play on a little south of Seaport, and a perfect pull to continue there. It opens up the option to kind of, you know, take shots at all the trios that have to rotate through the south side of the map, even a little southeast.
Typically, you'd see teams trying to surge base on the north and south sides of Seaport to just fully control the flow of the lobby, but they're just exclusively directing their focus towards that southern border. They want to prevent any teams from having those freer rotates, and they know that they can stick around. Got fishing options if need be. And other teams just looking to utilize those black markets instead. Reason could use a little bit of help here dealing with Twy. So immediately Badil looks to play backup, but Mr. Savage also making sure that they can finish what they started. And Twy, Hollow, they've definitely been off to a rough start here today.
It's like a constant hunt, right? It's like Mr. Savage, Badil, and Reason, you know, they didn't want to be contested, but when they were, they're like, okay, we're going to fight. Doesn't matter if we don't do it in the early game. We're going to fight you. And it's clearly going their way. Even if they end up picking their eliminations a little later on, I mean, they still get the job done. As iDrop has gone down, our leading trio. Was it just iDrop? Is Sky and Scroll still looking good? We'll have to see kind of how they're able to come back if they even have the chance to. Pink.
Find out next time. Observer POV scans back over, but they're not the only ones dealing with a little bit of a predicament. Pump Power, Demon's Dojo, split smack dab in the center of the action. Pink, Kiro, Nebs, and Pink, he's got a lot of faith in his teammates. Kiro, distinctly, the fact that Pink would put him in such high regard and just constantly gassing up his trio mate. That's a lot of confidence to instill, and could go a long ways for them here, dealing with Volko, Kiruo, Cringe. Volko trying to see if he can get something started. Cringe, crouching, lurking, just waiting for Nebs to overpeak for a moment. He might even be able to approach from a blind line of sight. Nebs isn't careful, but Pink, he's gonna be the real one under duress here. Pink forced to drop immediately, but Cringe, Volko, they weren't able to finish him off. And that's gonna allow Pink a moment to just reunite with the rest of his team.
Pink had a rough start to 2025. It would be nice to see him, have a great performance here in the major finals. They're already doing a decent job in 7th place, so all they have to do is kind of hold on in these early to mid games and keep getting to those lates. As we look at one of the most, if not the most consistent trios throughout the day today. Malibuca, Ping, and Walks. Levin mentioned it. I mean, they're already qualified to the Global Championship alongside Vico, Benno, and Flixi, but they are still showing why they ended up qualifying in just the first major of the year.
Hey, Lone Wolf might not have a black market, but it does have a vault and plenty of resources to kind of build off of. That is for sure the intention behind Malibuca's team. Eyedrop, Sky, and Scroll, though, all back together yet again. So successful rescue mission by Sky and Scroll. Eyedrop definitely going to be happy to be back in action with his teammates, but they've got a lot of heavy lifting to do here, Takada. They are so far out in Storm, and even if they're able to make a pass next to that backwoods black market, they're still so far behind on Surge now compared to what they had probably started off with.
I got faith, though. I mean, starting off so strong with matches, that big, it gives you a good kind of motivation boost moving into the next ones. A good bit of confidence if you have to take those fights. As Sangold actually just got knocked in front of them to Storm. If they have the right timing, they might be able to make something happen. Kami said Ihari, it looked so good starting off the day. They were pulling all the zones, but in game 2, they weren't quite able to put on the performance that they would have wanted to. So hopefully now they can kind of fix up their mistakes.
You will never be able to convince me that Seti, Kami, and Hari aren't a leading favorite, though, when they are uncontested and in a competitive meta that prioritizing dealing with these Surge bases. These guys are potent as ever. And Kami, he's just going to focus up on making sure that they've got more than enough mats, more than enough materials to work with for wherever they decide to rotate next. Hardy and Seti holding the teams on an island at bay. Akira, spot of trouble here. He's got pressure coming in from the team outside of the Surge base on the island, but he's also got to deal with the team directly fighting him. And big elimination onto Volko, Cringe, and Kiruo. Nowhere left to run. Unfortunately for him, the Shogun playing a huge part. Karamo should be able to utilize a double revive, but the Shogun getting involved, that's gotta be a tick for the Aussie Antics bingo board, right?
The Shogun 1v3 would be crazy if he continued forwards. We can see a replay of how this kicked off, though. Huge shot onto Cringe, kind of gave them that upper hand in the fight. But Vico, Benno, Flixi once again battling it out. Vico has been eliminated. Flixi falls shortly after, and now it's all up to Benno as he goes down. 26th place once again, matching their placement from last match. This is not what you want to see from a trio that's already qualified to the Global Championship.
But what's crazy is that this started off in Crime City, and now Chaptini, they actually chased out Venom's trio all the way to the likes of Lone Wolf Lair, and it might just pay the ultimate price here because Jewel, Sandguild, they are clearly on the hunt for a little bit of additional surge damage, if not just getting that siphon in the first place. But Jewel just not healthy enough to match it. Teeny finds the shots, able to switch out that infiltrator now for a sentinel pump, and that is already a massive win for Chapintini, as now they leave Lone Wolf with 7 eliminations, but they want to bring Skvi back into this.
Yeah, and they'll be able to do exactly that. I mean, they cleaned up that fight at the same time, basically. As you can see, they not only finished up the previous one quickly, but this is huge for Chaptini and Skvi. They're looking like they're in a kind of rough spot to play out this tournament, but they're making the best out of it. And it looks like Namzawa, Olo, and Twy are now at Seaport. They did kind of have that battle against Mr. Savage in the early game. I believe 2 of them went down, but having to go against Mr. Savage into Queasy shortly after, this is not really the position you want to be in.
This is exactly what Queasy's team was after. They opt to stick around so often inside of the Storm because they know we can play the dead side rotates, we can play the wraparound angles, and we can also look to punish teams that are playing for the reboot inside the Storm. Twy, Noms, just more bodies being added to the count here. The Swizzy, Mustache, and Queasy will now have the luxury of picking which direction they head next because Avahalo has been capitalized on.
Oh.
Queasy will need the double revive, but no real pressure for concern just yet.
iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, they're back in the game. They had a rough start, though, after iDrop ended up getting knocked, and now, as iDrop's gotten eliminated, Sky and Scroll, or at least are able to pick up a couple knocks, and alongside that, some eliminations as well. But they gotta be careful. Sky's already fully cracked. Scroll has to try and finish Focus off. There's more trios in the surrounding area. They're dead center of zone. All eyes are going to be on them. They have to finish this up quickly, but as Sky gets knocked, Scroll's left alone. It's gonna be impossible to bring them back in the game. This is not an ideal situation for the #1 trio in the lobby right now.
1 step forward, 2 steps back. They might have been able to get the reboot off onto iDrop, but you don't get to pick and choose your fights after that. When you are so low on Surge, even with the eliminations they did gather, they were just so incredibly low there. Takata, I'd be very surprised to see them make something out of that scenario in comparison to a trio like Malibuco, Walks, and Ping. Just chilling at Magic Mosses, currently in a position that could look to definitely control who actually gets to go in and out of this backwards black market.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting depending on where this zone pulls as well for this late game, how close the black market is. It's interesting how many trios are still, you know, outside the zone despite getting closer and closer to that 7th zone where storm damage is 5 ticks per second. They know that there's got to be those trios that are playing zone kind of making their way in now.
Scroll has nowhere left to run, though. He's just trying to pick off whatever shots he can. But when you're gazing out into the distance as a solo in 7th zone of all places, Takata, it is so difficult to actually try and convert this into anything more than maybe a handful of extra placement points. And already Scroll, the moment that he pops up, Focus immediately looking to take advantage, but the slide knockoff actually takes out Focus. Scroll will end up also being eliminated in the mix-up here, but it's just the fact that Focus even gets slide knocked in the first place.
That is insane to knock off your opponent like that, elim him to fall damage, but you know, his teammates were there. Not too much trouble so far.
It's gonna delay them though.
Yeah, I mean, the rotate's gonna be more difficult. They gotta use some whites now. That is quite unfortunate. Now, in terms of high ground, Mr. Savage here right under, I believe, Queasy's whole trio here. They're playing for that 8th zone pull. Will it pull towards them? Will it not? I don't know if they care. They might go for it either way, but so far their job, do enough damage and be ready for whatever happens when that 8th zone appears.
So long as Queasy is in a lobby, much less a finals lobby, you can never expect height to be a guarantee for anyone who isn't Queasy. Mustache, Swizzy, just keeping tabs on the flanks, trying to ensure that the direction that they choose to head next is completely cleared out.
Now, Thomas HD, despite getting 15th in the last match, he is still leading the whole lobby in terms of damage. Almost 3,000 damage, second place at 2,400 being Mustache. I mean, this guy does not miss. 300 above already. They've got that elimination, but Reason has gone down. Savage and Vidil, they fought Queasy, Swizzy, Mustache. They wanted to play for that height. They lost now both of their teammates. Savage is left alone, and at just 27 HP, a sliver of HP, one tick of surge would be all it takes, but they go down before being able to pick up those points in the late game. That is a crucial, devastating end to game 3.
And Swizzy knew that it's Chap and Teeny now on the other end of this mid-ground layer, because Mustache, he kind of kick-started all of this, finding that initial elimination onto Reason, then continuing his aggression onto Vidil, one after the next. That didn't leave Mr. Savage anywhere to run aside from into the hands of Chap, Teeny, and Svi. Cammy, Hari, Seti trying to take advantage of a lot of the confusion that was starting to build. But overhead on the bridge, cranking up. Cammy wants a little piece of the pie here. When the height conversation starts to take place, this is definitely one of our teams that can heavily threaten Queasy.
Not only did the zone not pull towards Queasy and Savage, but they ended up fighting, like you said, Talk, when it caused Cammy, Seti, and Harry to kind of take that high position once again, similar to game 1, but they have used quite a bit of materials. They might want a pullback to be able to hold this on all the way to the last moving zone, but Pixie, Marius, and Vanya are trying to maybe even chop them down here. They're so close to doing so. This could kind of disrupt them, not only in positioning, but cause them to use a lot more materials once again.
Cammy, Seti, and Hari, they know it can be very difficult to keep control of those teams in your underbelly of that secondary height. Malabuka, Walks, Ping, but they're not looking to let up the pressure anytime soon either. Just immediately taking out Kiro. All eyes focus onto Teeny now. He's just under so much heavy fire. The focal point of Malabuka's trio. But Malabuka gonna close off their backside and now continue to tarp his way forward. Doesn't want to get caught in congestion. Mustache and Sweezy though, they've lost Queasy as a duo, a dynamic duo at that. Big elimination onto Darkkeys. That's gonna be an extended lifeline for sure. And another one for Mustache. He can't keep getting away with this. Prax shut down in the crossfire as Mustache now looking to control this secondary height. A little bit of material goes a long way for him and Swizzy.
Just getting started when you got 2 fraggers of this caliber going at it. They're able to clean up a good amount of eliminations. Thomas HD with the pre-edits, looking to see if they can even pick up a refresh. Just 11 builds onto Thomas now. Zone pulling slightly up this hill. So many trios stuck down below. It opens up that option to kind of take shots on the ones especially low on shield. Where will this pull? It's going to pull towards boxcars, so they don't have to keep elevating themselves. Good for the trios down below. Cammy, Seti, Harry doing an amazing job of maintaining height, and Marius, Vanya, Pixie now ahead of the zone.
But Marius and Pixie, they were looking a little bit low, a little bit stressed on their damage. No longer a concern though. The lobby is thinning out at a rapid rate here. Seti gonna be the first one to drop. Cammy, Hardy still overhead. Seti now looking to see if he can find a point of connection. And Cammy directly overhead, just continuing to ensure that no one can threaten Poland up top. They want their Polska Gura moment, that's for sure. And Swizzy, barely any HP left to work with. A singular tag would be enough to take him out. But he has other plans. Instead, it's going to be Karama on the receiving end. Swizzy waiting for that Siphon to take over. And Swizzy just continuing to manage to squeeze his way through that pullback as well. That elimination onto Akira. They never saw it coming. Swizzy, just a madman.
Swizzy is not finished, as now that Siphon has put him back up to 50 shield, 100 HP to work with, looking way healthier than earlier. The issue is so many trios around them. Marius, though, close by. One shot could be all it takes to pick him up, as now he decides he's going to get to a less congested side of the zone. But going down, it's going to be Fredoxy with a double chug jug, making his way back in.
This was a massive risk, though, from Fredoxy. He ate so much damage from Storm. Wax has no idea, though, but Fredoxy wasn't able to close the gap. He couldn't thread the needle. He couldn't find the shot. Malabuka, Wax, they've continued to press forward in the low ground, and Pixie are now punished for it from behind. Wax takes him him out. Seti, Hari, Cammy, way up in the skies though. The zone continuing to pull over this hill face, and this is all but said and done here as Cammy, Seti, Hari just trying to spray out these last couple of remaining opponents on the low ground. Malabuka Walks doing so much heavy lifting. They've taken out Chino, but they know what lies at the end of this tunnel. They're gonna have to deal with Poland eventually, and Seti, Hari, Cammy, they don't want to let this opportunity slip by. They know exactly what they've got in their favor, and they are taking full positional advantage here. Seti closing in, Vanya cleaned up amongst the mess, and Walks hoping that he can get some form of a heal off in tow. Still 5 splashes though for Cammy.
They're gonna need a insane heal off for Walks if he wants to come out on top. The perfect zones for Cammy, Seti, and Hari. All they had to do was capitalize on it, and they have done it. I love to see a victory royale from this trio so early on. They didn't perform to expectations in Major 1. They've been the most consistent trio throughout the Divisional Cup finals here in Major 2. Finally getting a finals uncontested, and now being able to take home the win in Game 3. This is exactly what we've been waiting for.
And a statement game as well from Cammy, Seti, and Hari. They had been building for it all throughout the course of this endgame, just steadily keeping full control, suppressing the low ground layers, suppressing the mid ground layers, not allowing anybody to actually try and threaten their position. And they still had the heals if they needed them, Takada. And it's just a matter of time, though, before Walks had to surface a clean victory royale at that for Poland. But what do Frankie, Levin, and Minnie have to say?
I think I need to ask a quick question, actually. Minnie Minor, what day of the grand finals is it?
1.
I thought it was day 2 because Cammy, Seti, and Hari, they're showing up. What's going on, Minnie Minor?
Well, they're doing great. I mean, it was a very similar game to what we saw in game number 1 in terms of where the zone pull, right? They had that high ground early on. They took it in that sort of 8th zone. This time, though, worked out much better for them. I think a key element, we talked about it after last game, Queasy wasn't in the lobby, right? They were wounded. They were down to just a duo and then ultimately a solo. So they just had that freedom to play how they wanted to play up on high. Really nice to see them actually picking up a win as well. And I thought they weren't going to get it right there at the end because of the way that zone pulled, but nice to see them getting it done.
I mean, yeah, summed it up pretty perfectly there, to be honest with you. Look, I said at the start of the day, you know, Seti was pointing at that watch, and it is that time. You know, they get that win. I think the big thing for these guys, right, is like, we know uncontested they're going to be good. They're going to get a couple wins here and there. I think a lot of people are going to ask the question of will they have enough limbs to keep up with, you know, the likes of Malabuka and whatnot, who obviously going to be way up there in the standings. And I guess now the other thing that these guys have to start factoring in is, you know, is a team like Veno and them going to start maybe landing near them and giving them problems? Because when they are in these end games, they do this, right? You know, they can play low. We know that, we've seen that, but they also can play high ground incredibly well in these lobbies as well. So really impressed by these guys so far.
Yeah, and it's nice to see them win because I remember last Globals last year, Cammy and Seti actually won a game in that Globals. And the stat that I mentioned and that I was given was that that was the first game in the entire of all of the majors, Major 1, 2, 3, and of course the Globals, where they actually picked up a victory royale. So it's nice to see them actually winning. And thinking back, it's kind of like, yeah, they don't actually win that many games when it comes to the finals. Shows how troublesome they've been in these sort of past few finals. But it's nice to see them doing it here, and maybe this is their time.
Maybe it could be their time. I mean, it was their time in 2022. Why not do a repeat in 2025? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking all about game number 3.
Little bit suppressed rage and aggression.
Welcome back to the FNCS Major 2 Grand Finals. And so far today, our first 3 games have truly delivered. So let's talk about our hot favourites, because Queasy went down at the start of the end game there in game number 3. However, he's got fantastic teammates in Swizzy and Mustache. Mustache in particular showing up and showing off, Levin.
Yeah, I mean, this is why, if you're Queasy, you want to be playing with 2 of the best fraggers in the world, because in games where you might not be able to put on the IGL in masterclass, you know they're going to bail you out with their fragging ability. And I mean, again, you know, in this game, it wasn't a spectacular game in terms of just the final finish and everything, but what Mustache and Swizzy are able to do in terms of getting points out of the game in the limbs and just popping off as a duo and then eventually solo, it keeps you in the running, right? It keeps you high up in the standings, Mini.
Yeah, this is exactly what we spoke about last major as well. I know Mustache was one that was just keeping this trio up there, doing so much damage. I think he was the damage leader in last grand or last major finals, and what he was just able to do was just to keep them alive and keep them going. Swizzy doing the exact same, and this is exactly what you need, as you mentioned. I think a lot of their sort of troubles came from that fight. I think it was against Twi's team there at Seaport City. Just went on a little bit too long. Then, of course, they were late getting into the zone, but it's those clutches, those duo clutches right there, and of course, ultimately the solo clutch from Swizzy that really keeps them in the standings.
Can I ask you guys about our team at the top of the leaderboard here? Wox, Malabuka, Ping. I feel like watching them and my untrained non-analyst eye, they've got this high-risk, high-reward play style. Maybe I'm wrong here, because they seem to be the most consistent trio in the lobby so far, Minnie.
Yeah, unrelenting pressure in endgame. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's all they do. It's just constant pressure. Those pre-edits coming through yet again, always looking for something. You can even see, look at the amount of builds they have right there. They don't need all these refreshes necessarily. They can just start front side of zone, but what they're able to do is they're able to take advantage of players that aren't looking so good. They're looking in the wood. They're looking sort of a little bit weak on the backside of zone and really take advantage of their loot and, of course, their refresh. So that's what this team do really, really well, and not an ideal performance from them, of course, in a couple of the games. I think they had a 7th today in one of the games, but a nice sort of second here to clutch up this game.
I mean, I'll take the 7th if I have 2 other seconds.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's not too bad. And they're first.
If I'm sitting on first in the leaderboard, I'm not going to be crying about the
they're
second.
boring, though. They want to be second every game.
I mean, look, it's funny because Frankie rightfully mentions, like, it's kind of a bit of a juxtaposition, to go back to my GCSE English days, because they are a team that plays, you know, seemingly this high-risk style in these end games, but they've been the most consistent in getting to end games and looking comfortable to actually play out that way, right? So, again, this team, I'm liking. You know, if you are someone who believed that they genuinely were going to come out here and win FNCS this season, you will be smiling and laughing at everybody right now.
Let's take a look at the leaderboard again. I'm interested in page number 2, because one of the big talking points so far from today has been Vico, Veno and Flixie deciding, you know what, we're not going to contest for Doxy's trio at Mast Meadows. We're actually going to surprise everyone in the lobby. But to be honest, they've surprised us on the desk, because they're currently sitting in 14th place, and I did not have that on my bingo card for today, Mini Miner.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a great performance from them in game number 1. They made that end game, and it just hasn't quite worked out. Levin, we saw them in that game actually landing in the same spot that they landed in the very first game, but they didn't take advantage of that Oasis fight, so they sort of ended up rotating away. They got beamed in the back, so if they don't do it well, this is the risk of that strategy, right? They could get beamed in the back, they could just enter uncharted territory, but if they do it well, which they now need to, it could really work out for them.
I don't think the problem's actually been the strat, though. Like, when you look at just the actual strat of them, like, sort of landing in different places and looting sort of outskirts and then getting involved in some of the bigger POIs and some of the other fights, that's been working a treat. Like, it's been going really great. It's the after that, like, playing out the rest of the mid-game, going into endgame where they've really had the struggle. So I wonder how that plays in. I think, you know, it's easy to just say, oh, some minor mistakes, but I think the strat is working.
But Levin, would you not maybe agree that if you're going somewhere different that you're used to and you're in slightly uncharted territory, then that's going to maybe unsettle you, especially when the pressure is on?
I think that plays a part, right? Because we know teams have certain rotations they take, you know, due to familiarity of the spot, right? You understand sort of how to play the mid game out from your spot. But I think from how they're trying to play in terms of they're just sort of doing their strat, and then they're mostly just playing on congested side of the zone and like just sort of following the zones, white lining, which they know how to do. It's just the execution of it, right? That's the real problem right now.
Well, they've got 3 more games left this day 1 to pick things up. So let's head over to Taco and Takata to see if they can do it.
Thank you, Frankie. I mean, that stability is kind of what you need in these major finals, though, is the issue. You know, I'm thinking, Taco, is there going to get a point where Vico, Veno, Flixie are like, you know what? we're going to Masked Meadows. We're just going to make it happen. We're going to go for the constant 3v3 every game, or are they going to keep switching it up? What do you think?
They're not a team that needs the element of surprise to manifest their own level of success. We know exactly what they're capable of. We know what kind of standards they set for themselves. And I know I'm excited to see what they do here in Game 4.
Bingo time is here. Where are they going to drop? Is it going to be an outskirts? Is it going to be something new? We also have Mr. Savage, who's been leading in every single game against Twy, Awahalo, and Noms down at the southern kind of snowy mountain split. A lot of interesting kind of early game engagements, but so far consistency is kind of what's lacking for these trios that aren't yet in that top 10, top 5. Very impressed with Malabuka and his trio, but for Pink, Nebs, and Kiro, they're down to 10th place now. They started off incredibly strong with a 3rd, following a 19th and 11th. They're luckily, you know, uncontested, and they can play this out like they have previously. I mean, in the last week of the Div Cup Finals, we talked about it, but even though they were contested, they still got 2nd place. I mean, contested in the sense, the same thing that we're seeing now with Akira down south. It's not actually being contested, but, you know, will they be able to kind of get a similar performance? This is interesting.
This is pump power currently being threatened by the likes of Vico, Veno, and Felixi. An interesting trio to dance with, though. Demas, Pix, and Darm. They are no rollover team by any means. This could be a little bit more than what Veno, Vico, and Felixi had bargained for. Already finding themselves in a very difficult position because another team has entered the fold. Twy, Noms, Awahalo. They got sick of what was happening at the Big Ben tunnel. They got sick of dealing with Savage, Vidil, and Reason. So now they're trying to thwart Veno, Vico, and Felixi's strategy with the surprise contest last minute. Darm, Demas, Pix, they'll be able to essentially just scatter on out. They're not in the center like Veno, Vico, and Flixi were. And it's only Vico left standing. He's gonna have to wrap back around, play for a reboot. His teammates no longer with him. Very early demise for a team that we would not have anticipated to be out so soon, but that is part of the risk involved with their current strategy. Pix, Darm, Demas, they're not going to deal with Noms' team.
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, they were able to kind of get out of the early games in the previous matches, but this time around, it was literally the drop spot that didn't go their way. Awahalo, Twy, and Noms too. Now, most likely leaving Mr. Savage uncontested. This is what he was looking for. Excited to see how that plays out, but for Pix, Darm, and Pix, Darm, and Demas, this is kind of tough. I mean, they don't have the upper hand in this engagement. They're low on HP and shield, but the good news is that they made it out without getting knocked. They should be able to recuperate what they lost, and we'll look back to iDrop, Sky, and Scroll that didn't have the best of matches in the last one.
Scroll, though, world of trouble here. Some shots